I'm Clarice Connolly, and I'm here because I love podcasting. I love being on the show, and
I was kind of thinking more
I
about the
know.
coaching credentials. Okay, we've got a big show today. We don't have this kind of time.
I know, I'm so
Just get in
excited.
there.
So I'm an empowerment coach, and you can find me on empoweringwomen.coach. I just
You
noticed
forgot where
I'm
you were.
missing her
Yeah.
bio. I was like, oh, I'm going to need to find that at the same time and
Yeah,
talk.
that would be super good.
It's not working.
All right, here, I'll click that. My name is Christopher McAuliffe, Master Certified Coach. Been a coach for 23 years. Clarice is just starting out. How many years? 2, 3, 7?
Oh, 3 in June.
3. Congratulations. Yes. We are your co-host. Clarice is sort of a special guest star co-host, just temporary. If you
Can't actually get rid of me.
I think you know why.
Can't actually.
And what we're going to do today, as we do each and every week here on the Coaching Show, is interview some folks so that you get some education, some entertainment, learn something new. Our intention here has been, since our beginning 16, 15, 14 years ago, to provide education and entertainment to the coaching community and people committed to the development, the evolution of human beings. And we're delighted to be with you each and every week right here on WSRadio.com or soon on AccomplishmentMedia.com.
Yeah, it's a little teaser.
Mm-hmm. See what I did there? Here, you should probably look right here. See, because I already clicked it.
Great.
What we need you to know, here's something. We're going to talk more about this later, but if you're looking for the world's finest coach training program, go check out Accomplishment Coaching at AccomplishmentCoaching.com. Available throughout North America, in-person, small groups. It's truly, by any measure, the finest coach training program in the world. Not for everyone, but if you're that kind of person, if you're that kind of looking for that kind of level of support, training, transformation, and development, check it out, AccomplishmentCoaching.com. We also want you to know that there are it's conference season, and there are many conferences coming up. I myself will be next week at the Conversation, singular, Among Masters, plural.com. Conversation Among Masters conference. We'll be speaking with the likes of Julio Alaya and Cheryl Richardson and others. In addition, there's the Association of Coach Training Organizations conference coming up in June. So if you're a coach trainer or know one, check that out at actoonline.org. Of course, you can always find out your local ICF chapter meetings by going to the ICF website, coachfederation.org. That's coachfederation.org. And some of the regional, the large Converge conference won't be happening this year. That'll be next year in, where did we say? Prague, Czechoslovakia, right? Mm-hmm. And but there are regional events this year. The ICF Midwest Coaches Conference is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'll be there. Mm-hmm. Of course, the Capital Coaches Conference in D.C. And others all around the country. Check it out, coachfederation.org. All right, without further ado.
Wait,
what?
yeah?
No, what?
Accomplishment coaching?
Well, I did talk about accomplishment. It's like you don't listen. Coaching is all about listening.
Yep.
Because you were busy looking up Miss Elaine Bennett. Did you do what I do? It's Elaine Bennett. It's such a lovely name, but don't you kind of feel like you've met someone with that name already?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's one of
very
those
classic
things. She's her background is as a speech writer in business, but the speech it's not like Joe Blow. It's like for the CEO of Salomon Brothers, right during the scandal, right, and then Warren Buffett stepped in, an investor who stepped in to address Salomon Brothers, and then she worked with Warren Buffett. That's a quick step up to the top, isn't it? An extraordinary writer. She's also got a lot to say about coaching, about speaking, about making presentations, also what she calls courageous communication. It's our delight to welcome to our microphones Elaine Bennett. Hello, Elaine.
Hi, Christopher. Hi, Clarice. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Look around outside. Where are you today?
I am on Cape Cod, which I would normally say beautiful Cape Cod, but spring has not made an appearance here yet. Not a really long one.
All that gray is just to keep the tourists away. That's what that's doing there. Yeah.
It's doing a great job.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. So you've been in crisis. You've been around when companies have gone through crisis. You've been around when companies were trying to grow. You've been around when companies were sort of on the back end and maybe not growing anymore. Let's start with how important communication is. Are companies making mistakes out there right now in their communications that you can see? Are there, or maybe even political figures, are there people that are sort of blowing it in terms of their communication from your perspective?
Well, if we talk about political figures, we will be here all week. So I'll just
30 minutes, 30 minutes. Don't do it.
But, I think that when you've got an issue, like, for instance, say you're a large social media company and people get mad at you for
What you might be doing with their data?
right, yes. I'm just a hypothetical example.
Clear.
You need to get out front in it. You can't be cute. You can't say, oh, well, data helps the world. Data does help the world, but you want people to give you their data freely and knowing what you're going to do with it, not just freely and not knowing what you're going to do with it. So you got to say, look, we blew it. We messed up. We're going to do better. You can't just say we're going to do better. You have to apologize because, from your life, apologies are what make you able to get over the hump of crisis. Whether you're having an argument with your partner, or whether you've done something terrible to your clients, your customers. You got to say I'm sorry before you can move forward.
These hypothetical people you're talking about, sorry, that was a poorly timed swill of my water here. These hypothetical people you're talking about did so, and so you think they're on the right track, potentially, if once you apologize, remember to apologize, and once you've apologized, then do you get sort of a free ride? Do you have to prove to people that you have veracity?
You definitely have to prove to people. I mean, one thing that I learned from working with Warren is that, the reason Warren came to Solomon Brothers was because we had trashed our reputation like in a minute, and that reputation took decades to build. So once you've had some reputational risk, it's going to take you time to work up from there and work back to your clients or your audience's good graces. And when you apologize, though, you have to do it without any sort of what blogger Josh Burnoff calls weasel words, and just really say, don't try and cloud it in corporate speak. Don't, do run it through your legal people, but don't let them legalify it up, Just say, we did this, we didn't understand the ramifications, we're sorry, we're working, we want your input on what we can do better.
So I know you do a lot of work with writing and individuals. What would you say are the three biggest mistakes that people, like individual people, are making when they're speaking?
Well, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people get up to make a speech, say at a luncheon or a gala, and they start by thanking people. Because unless you're one of those people who's going to be thanked, you are not going to listen to anything that they say, and you never, ever want to give your audience permission to not listen to you. So I'm not saying don't thank people, but add value to the thank you. Thank them in the course of the presentation. Talk about if you're a nonprofit, talk about how your food bank is working, and then say, thank you to Joe and Sally for the donations that they direct to the food bank, that sort of thing. The other thing is the other big mistake is really trying to cram too much into a presentation.
I do that.
Me too.
People can only absorb so many things. So really everything that you say after the first point or maybe the second point comes out sounding like Charlie Brown's parents, wah, 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 wah. So you just want to make one focused point. Tell a story so that they can get that idea embedded in their brains, because stories are how we take in ideas, and then leave. And if they want to know more, they'll invite you back.
Clear.
If you've got a 6-point program that you're promoting, do not talk about all 6 points. Talk about 1 or 2, and then mention the other 4.
Man.
And you can change the 2 that you talk about with each audience, but do not try and get the whole thing in. Even, and you think, well, if I just say a sentence or 2 about each one. No. It's not a matter of how short you talk about each one. It's a matter of the people cannot retain 6 things.
Mm-hmm. That is so important, and
wow.
we've heard that here on the show a lot, right? People are like, "Here are my 6 points," and by the time they get to 6, I've forgotten the first 4.
Right.
Oh, I didn't even think
I mean,
about that too.
not anybody that's listening, but other people. Right. What's the third one? I think Clarice asked you for 3 big mistakes. I got 2: starting by thanking people and trying to cram too much in. Is there a third?
She just said
Yes,
one, too.
it's saying that you have 3 things to say and then not being able to think of a third.
Yay! It goes right into the point, so listeners will now be able to actually take this in because there's only 1 to 2 points.
A little slow today. I love that. That was hilarious. Okay, great. One of the things, of course, you've had an extraordinary career arc in terms of speech writing, and a lot of people that are giving talks that are listening here are not at the level of don't have their own social media company, right? So when we're starting out, and I think especially with coaches, we tend to try and sort of separate ourselves from the last 25 coaches you've seen speak at this same Rotary Club or whatever. Any tips?
Yeah, if you find yourself having the same message that other people have, because I mean there are only so many messages in the world, and there are only so many letters in the English language. You're gonna have to say some things that other people say, but if you ground it in something that is from your experience, then you will always be unique because no one else has had your experience. So let me give you an example. I'm a big baseball fan.
Yay!
And I am on a trek around all of the baseball. I want to see a game in all of the parks in North.
Me too, with my son. Oh, I knew I liked you.
Well, I'm not trying to do it all at once because that's crazy. But so last year I went down to Philadelphia and I saw the Mets play the Phillies. I'm a Mets fan. Pray for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to see the Phillies. I apologize for them. Okay.
That's okay. But so I was sitting. I always, when I go to a new ballpark, I always get the best seats I can. So I was right behind home plate, maybe 5 or 6 rows back, and this couple came in after the game had started, and the lady, they were obviously tourists, and they had their Phillies swag, and the lady was so excited to be sitting in a baseball park, and she had one of those cotton bucket hats, and every time somebody popped up a foul, she would leap up and try and catch the ball in the bucket hat. And of course, if you know the laws of physics, when you're sitting right behind home plate, there's a big tall screen. You are never going to get hit by a foul ball. But so it was an impossible quest for her to begin with, and she was always so disappointed when she never caught the ball.
Pretty sure I dated her.
Mm-hmm. But when I got back to my hotel, I realized that was a fabulous metaphor for so many things. You could talk about, boundless optimism. You could talk about disappointment. You could turn that into a story about coaching. You could turn that into a story about business, or you could tell it as a story about baseball. And that's what I call a story safari. It's when you sort of suit up and go out in the world and you find stories that you can bring back and use when you need them.
Also a great Beach Boys song. Sorry.
Story safari.
Nice. Elaine, I knew I liked you, and now that I know all this about your baseball and your habits of getting the best seats wherever you go, because I do that too, I'm with you. We're BFFs. Okay, so one way is to make sure that it's grounded in your experience. Is there anything else, any tips or techniques, or are those things sort of transparent to the audience if you're like trying to, I don't know, play upbeat music or, starting with a catchphrase or anything that some of us have tried? Is that stuff work or is it just cheesy?
I have been in audiences where it was either one of those. So I mean, if you're going to play the upbeat music and then you walk out and you say, "Hi, I'm Christopher, and I'm here today to talk about," no music in the world is going to help you there. But also, if you come out and you have the used car salesman demeanor, "Hi," that's not going to work either. So I think the best thing to do is to try and connect with your audience. And I don't mean like, "Hey, is anybody here from Pittsburgh?" But just talk about where you are at this moment, right? Maybe they've been sitting there all day, and you're the 12 o'clock speaker, and the lunch break is coming up. But don't just make a joke or make a comment. Try and you have to add value to the audience with everything you say. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to talk about sitting there waiting for lunch, then say, this may be how some of your managers feel when they're waiting for that report that you need to get to them, or use it in some coaching way, right? I tell my people when they're anxious for something to channel that into excitement, or I don't know, whatever you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You never want to. I mean, a lot of people say, start your presentation with a joke. Right. And yes, it's awesome if you can get the audience to laugh. That's fabulous. But it has to be a joke that flows into the body of your presentation. Mm-hmm. It can't just be, a duck walked into a bar. So, although that can get a laugh, see?
I'm simple.
So make it a joke about. I had a speech to write for a gentleman who was British, and he was talking to some people in the transportation industry, mm-hmm. and I found a true story of a news report of Prince Charles when he was a young boy. He was going somewhere with the Queen, and they took the royal train, and somebody asked him how he liked the journey, and he said, "I would have rather gone on the bus." Right? So that's a great joke for a British man. That's a great story for a British man to start a presentation to the transportation industry with.
Oh, I got it.
You got it? Mm-hmm. So it's a funny story. Think of stories rather than jokes, right? Mm-hmm. Because jokes can be meaningless, but a story will always, and you open your presentation like that, you get the audience to laugh or at least to smile, and then they're ready to listen to you to 2 of your 6 points that you're going to make.
Nice. I know that you do a lot of writing and coaching people and training us to write, but while we're talking about speaking and speech writing, I want to ask you, one of the things I notice is that in the few talks that I've given and over the years, when I've written them, every once in a while I write something that I just am so proud of, right? Uh-huh. Not the whole thing, just like a line or a thought or a turn of a phrase. And I love that so much. And I imagine that you've had thousands of those in your career. Will you share a couple with us? And is there something we should do with those? Like, should we make it our catchphrase or our, logo, or should we just respect that we're brilliant and move on with our lives?
Well, first of all, when you write something that you're very pleased with, pat yourself on the back, because so often writers are in the other camp of thinking that they're terrible, and that's when you need to remember what Ernest Hemingway said, and he was not a bad writer himself, mm-hmm. but he said all first drafts are manure, except he didn't say manure, but I know I can't. I will tell you. More than a line, it's a story again. So I was having to write a speech for a CEO to deliver to a conference on women in business. And I had him open by talking about an employee, and we'll call her Maria. And she is unhappy with the strictures of her job. She's probably, a Gen Xer when Gen X was starting to enter the workforce. Maybe now she's a Gen Y or whatever, millennial. So she know that her job description, her assignments were very, very, she had to perform the same way every day. They didn't have any flexibility for her to go do something else during the workday, and it really weighed on her. And every once in a while, and her supervisors just didn't understand her, and every once in a while she would just cut out of work and run up to the mountains with her guitar and burst into song because Maria is the heroine of The Sound of Music. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote a speech about using the plot of The Sound of Music as sort of a business case study.
Wow.
And that was, I've been writing for that client for a while. That's probably not the kind of thing that somebody's going to accept from you if it's your first speech for them. But he was really brave and stuck to it, and it actually won an award for the best written speech about diversity that year.
Nice job.
Thank you. But that's the kind of thing that sticks with me, because it was I was trying to come up with an idea for this speech, and I kept having the song "How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria" kept going through my head, and I kept trying to swat it out. I'm like, I've got to concentrate on this speech. And
right.
then, like the third time it came back, I was like, oh, Maria's a problem. But Maria wasn't a problem. She was a leader. They just didn't see the way she was leading.
Beautiful.
So I'm definitely, I love giving speeches. I love speaking. I'm more of like stuck on the writing part. I don't know whether it's a performance thing for me, but how do you think that people can overcome writer's block?
Well, I think the first thing to recognize is that writer's block does not exist. So, really, I have a different word for it, and your listeners might want to write this down. It's a technical term. I call it, instead of writer's block, I call it working. Sometimes you need to think about stuff. Sometimes things need to marinate. And if you start to pathologize it, then you're gonna freeze yourself up. So just recognize it's a natural part of the process, and just keep going. And if you really can't think of anything to write, open up a document and write, I have no idea what to write, and keep writing that until you have an idea. But the other thing, and this is especially important for speeches, although you can use the technique for other things that you write as well. If you get hung up on writing, and if your writing sounds much more stilted than your talking, talk into a voice recorder, and then transcribe it and clean it up. And then rehearse it, and that's really important, to rehearse your speech. People omit that step a lot, but talk it out, and that way you will sound normal, because you'll sound like you're talking, because that's how the speech got created.
It's amazing. I love that notion. I'm friends with another coach who's written a lot, and he says, when I'm writing, it looks like my wife thinks I'm goofing off, he said, but when she thinks I'm writing, I'm just typing what I've already written during the time that it looked like I was goofing off. So I love that notion that what there is to do is to sit down and write. Writers write.
Writers write.
You've done something called a writing challenge. How does that work?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do another one starting June 4th. So the way you register, and then you write for 15 minutes a day for the 5 days of the writing challenge. That's why it's called the 5 by 15 writing challenge. And when you complete your 5 days of writing at the end of the 5th day, I will donate half your registration fee to a literacy nonprofit.
Oh, that's wonderful. Where do we go to do that?
Well, I've got a page up for the coaching show.
Yay.
Bennett Inc., 2 N's, 2 T's for Bennett, INK, because I'm a writer, .com/the coaching show.
Great.
And when your listeners go there, they can also get a copy of my ebook, Do It Anyway, Tips for Courageous Communications.
That's so generous. Okay, one more time. The website is Bennett Inc. That's BENNETTINK.com. BennettInc.com, and then / The Coaching Show. And you can register for the writing challenge. The 5-day writing challenge starts on June 4th. But if you write for 15 minutes a day for 5 days in a row, and she'll donate half of your registration fee to a literacy nonprofit. Again, BennettInc.com / The Coaching Show. And you can get a free copy of her ebook, Do It Anyway, Tips for Courageous Communication. That's very generous of you. Our time has flown by. We got about 20 seconds left. Is there a parting thought or a parting shot you'd like to leave us with, Elaine Bennett?
The best way to write better is to write every day.
Oh, that's so good.
She's good. That's good. And I thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us from beautiful Cape Cod, even in the gray. That's Elaine Bennett. You can find out more by going to Bennett, BENNETT, Inc.com, all one word, BennettInc.com. And if you / The Coaching Show, you can do your own writing challenge as well as get that free ebook. All right, when we come back, we'll have more of today's edition of the Coaching Show, talking about neuroscience.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe, ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Are you seeking to change your career to something that is both fulfilling and challenging? Do you want to help people reach their full potential and strive to achieve their dreams? Would you like to inspire those around you and help create a better world? If you're serious about a career change or just want to explore the craft of personal coaching, contact Accomplishment Coaching. With locations across the country in Washington, D.C., Seattle, Chicago, New York City, and San Diego, Accomplishment Coaching is the leading institution in personal coaching. Our staff carefully monitors the entire program, live during the training process, and have met the strict standards of ICF International to achieve accreditation. Through a focus on quality instruction rather than endless modules of training, Accomplishment Coaching will guide you from your very first step all the way to becoming one of the finest coaches in the world. Visit AccomplishmentCoaching.com to learn more. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach.
Christopher McAuliffe is your source for the latest in the world of personal coaching. Whether it be speaking with such luminaries as Deepak Chopra or getting the newest techniques and innovation, the Coaching Show is always on the cutting edge of what's happening now.
Gotham Books presents Marriage Rules by Harriet Lerner. The book Martha Beck calls required reading for anyone hoping to interact successfully with any other human, not just for those in romantic relationships. Get your copy wherever books and ebooks are sold, and visit harrietlerner.com to learn how to change your marriage today.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome back to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach Christopher McAuliffe.
Thank you, dear listeners, for being with us. Well, again, we want to shout out to Accomplishment Coaching. If you're interested in the world's finest coach training program by any measure, it's not hype, it's not just a slogan. It's actually a commitment that's been fulfilled for over 18 years. Accomplishment Coaching is the place you want to check out. ICF accredited, of course. It's got in-person small group coach training programs across the United States and in Canada. Check it out by going to accomplishmentcoaching.com and find out what separates the world's finest coach training program from every other training program out there. Anything that you want to say before we introduce perhaps our most interesting guests ever?
I'm so excited for these guests. I don't know that I can wait another minute.
All right. Well, that would be the voice of Clarice Connolly, our special in-studio guest co-host today. And you can find out more about Clarice by going where?
Empoweringwomen.coach.
Empowering Women, plural, .coach, singular. All right. What if you took somebody who was a neuroscientist focused on brain-computer interface and then had them get their MBA at Stanford University, meet and marry a writer who's actually managing freelance writers? They created an art commission marketplace, which we'll find out more about what that is. And then they wrote a book called The Pragmatist's Guide to Life, and started a foundation called the Pragmatist Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping people think critically and take ownership of their actions and identities. Most important, most interesting, people on the planet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why you have to have them on the show, because this is amazing.
Absolutely. We have such people here. Malcolm Collins and Simone Collins are joining us. Hello.
Hello, we are thrilled to be here with you.
Thank you. You sound it. I'm going to have to caffeinate to keep up here. Look around outside. Where do you guys join us from today?
Today is Miami. Tonight will be Scotland.
Wow.
Wow.
I'll have what they're having. All right. This is, at the very least, this is an odd pathway. Tell us a little bit first about the first, I'm gathering it's the first sort of collaboration between the two of you, artcorgi.com?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. That was in our early startup phase together in Silicon Valley. We were actually working on a different startup at the time, working on empowering freelancers through online tools. And then Malcolm just decided to get really romantic and proposed to me with a bunch of commissioned art that he posted on Reddit. It went viral. It inspired us to create a startup that basically made it easier for artists to sell commissioned art to everyday people. And it turned into what's now the biggest mid-market art commissioning platform online.
And for clarification, commissioned art basically means you go to an artist and you say something like, I want you to, paint my family or something for this year's Christmas cards.
Yeah, not actually applying paint to the family, but paint a picture.
Yeah.
Correct.
Ooh.
Well, it might be a different price.
Idea here.
Dang it. I always give away my best ideas. All right. All right. Yeah, so and that's still up and running. Do you guys still own it? Are you still involved?
We're still the founders. We still own it. We've installed a CEO to run it now, and it's doing just fine on its own without us because, frankly, we have our hands full between our travel business, TravelMax, and the foundation that we started as well.
Right, and doesn't Malcolm do a little side hustle of being the director of strategy of some place?
Oh, that was my last job. I was director of strategy at the number one early stage VC firm in South Korea. We worked on investing in startups, and that was also the world Simone came from before this. So a little missing part of your story is we were both in the VC world, and she did it in the UK.
There we go. Okay, that makes me feel slightly better about my own lack of comparable accomplishments. Let's talk about. Okay, so that's a former job, but you both run a number of travel companies now.
Yes.
When you're not writing
travel companies, we didn't found these ones.
Okay.
And it's much larger. I mean, the travel company sort of empire makes Art Corgi look very, very small. And if people want to use it, they can find it at travelmax.com or just email us directly at CEO@travelmax.com.
Now, I'm forgive me, but I'm going to take a moment for me. Clarice would tell you that's every moment, but
Yeah.
I feel like we we need to know more, because travel agencies, travel companies, in my understanding, over the last 10 years or something, were basically going out of business. They were losing business. You know, people were going to Trivago and Orbitz and all these places themselves. And so my understanding was it was a horrible idea to have travel companies. How have you made a travel company viable in this day and age?
You know what? The funny thing is that's exactly what we said when we encountered this company. What we'd done is raised a bunch of money from investors to find a single company to buy and then operate going forward, like miniature private equity. So we'd spent, the previous 9 months before we found this company searching for what we found to be the ideal businesses, recurring revenue, like compliance management. But we found this travel agency, and it's a gem of a business, and a lot of people still use it. The reason being that we've negotiated directly with airlines prices that frankly cannot be posted online. They can only be offered privately through our system of agents that are really competitive, and we're able to provide a whole lot more support than Expedia or any other site that you buy tickets from online could. So we were surprised by the value.
We were specifically looking for a company in an industry that didn't have a lot of interest right now. And that came from a conversation Simone had with me where, I'd been offered a management position at Google, and she goes, if you don't take this job, the person they replace you with is going to be just like you. They're going to think just like you. There's going to be no differential change in the world. But if you go into an industry where not a lot of people like us exist, that's where you're going to make a real impact on the world. And I was very compelled by that argument.
And how's it going?
It's going splendidly so far. I almost missed this call because I was running late in a meeting with Air Europa. We're about to fly to the UK, where we're doing a bunch of client meetings and meeting with a potential partner there, and then British Airways. I mean, it's super fun.
We should focus on the interesting stuff, and that's the book.
And sudden left turn. Let's do that. All right. Well, I'm fascinated. I think people should check out Travel Max. I'm also all about this Art Corgi. It's ARTCORGI.
Like the dog.
And people should go check that out, because what a great gift. We've missed Mother's Day, but Father's Day's coming up, and people's anniversaries and whatnot. So I think we should not throw all that stuff out. And the book. This has a rare, people love this book. On Amazon, it's 4.99 out of 5 stars. Why people got to be that way, I don't know. But it's incredible.
We got our first bad review today, which said the ideas in the book were bizarre and dangerous.
Clarice.
That was totally me.
All right. The book we're talking about, of course, is The Pragmatist's Guide to Life, a guide to creating your own answers to life's biggest questions. What in the world would have you go from this VC, mini private equity life of yours to suddenly talking about life's biggest questions?
Honestly, it's a conversation we've had from the very first day that we've met that ultimately started getting written down, and then we decided to publish what we'd written because it helped us so much. I mean, it is why we are in the position we are. Why I went from, when I met Malcolm, being a basically glorified customer service agent to now being the CEO of a multinational travel corporation. We saw how effective it was, this process we'd worked out, and we thought, okay, well, we'd first just written it to share it with our children, and then we thought, okay, why would we do that if we really believe in this and it helps us? Share it with everyone.
Tell us, Malcolm, it seems like that was a kind of a left turn in your career, but you've been thinking about this stuff for a while. You're a guy who has his own life plan, because if we look at your accomplishments, it doesn't seem like it's in line with a plan, but sort of the whim of the moment, or has it been your plan to be multifaceted and varied?
This is something that I have planned for basically my entire life. I make the money I make. I do the jobs I do so I can promote the message of this book and the cause of the Associated Foundation, because if we're not pushing it, it doesn't look like anyone else is right now.
This was always Malcolm's plan. I mean, when I met him on our first date, he sat across from me, and in addition, by the way, to making it very clear on our first date that he was not looking to date, he was looking for a wife, and he expected to find his wife that fall at Stanford, where there was a large pool of pre-vetted candidates. So he said that. Then he laid out this entirely thought through, elaborate life plan. And with all of those left turns that, you think are, no, they were planned. Everything was planned. And honestly, when he said all that to me and then sat across from me at dinner and asked, okay, so now you go.
I can't even imagine.
I'm like, oh, God. And that's one of the things that really kicked off that conversation I alluded to that led to the Pragmatist's Guide to Life.
Awesome.
I realized that everything that I had, was not thought through.
Well, it wasn't even that I asked, what's your life plan? What I sat through and asked, I just specifically, what's she trying to achieve? What does she want from her life? What are the things she's trying to maximize? And the answers you first threw at me were very generic,
Oh, God, yes.
They were like, I want to make people happy. I want to be happy. I want to, prevent suffering. I want to achieve, some vague sense of spiritual enlightenment. And then when I started digging deeper on that, it was very much, well, why do you want that? Specifically, why? Specifically, why does human happiness have value to you?
And technically the answer was because I was raised in Silicon Valley and merely told that is what one should
This is what you do.
try to achieve.
Yeah. What do you think the average person is doing wrong when they are developing their, so-called life plan?
And let's acknowledge that the average person probably doesn't have a life plan, right? But even those that do, what are we doing wrong? Where are we misstepping?
The biggest mistake that people make is they develop a life plan to achieve or maximize certain things in their life. And a lot of people actually do develop a life plan. But what people don't do enough is ask themselves, what am I trying to maximize in my life? And why am I trying to maximize those things? If it's your own happiness, why does your own happiness matter to you? Why is happiness something of value to you? What's the philosophical underpinning for this belief that you have created an entire life plan around? And that's what a lot of the book does focus on, is helping people think through, without trying to bias them towards any specific answer, what exactly it is that they want to maximize with their lives.
Right, so our argument isn't so much that people aren't good at making plans. It's that, they're good at making plans, and then they achieve those plans, and they're like, oh, well, I guess that doesn't really matter to me. I feel unfulfilled.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I want to make money and be happy and be powerful.
And we met all these successful, VCs and millionaires and even some billionaires, and you know what? They just didn't seem any happier, more fulfilled than, or even less lost than we were.
Yeah, it's like they're even more lost because they've achieved everything that they thought would make them feel unlost, and it didn't.
Yeah.
It's let's test your theory. What are you trying to maximize, and why are you trying to maximize it?
Well, it's something that we honestly don't like to talk about about what we're trying to maximize as much, because we feel it sort of biases people. And one of the things that we really fight for in our book and in our foundation is not to guide people down any specific path. So many books that are trying to give you a guide to life or help you answer these questions, they come at it with the assumption that the Christian path is right, or the spiritual path is right, or the nihilist path is right. And what we want to do is help guide people to their own answers. So our vaguer goal is to just help people be more intentional in their lives, so that they are actually fighting and spending the one life they have trying to achieve something they actually want.
Don't you feel like you really want to know now?
No, I can agree with that, actually.
Okay.
I feel like I kind of take the same stance. I don't want people to follow me or to believe in me because they want to end up like me. I feel like everyone has their own truth, and it's a matter of pointing them in the direction of follow your own heart, not just what everyone else is doing or what everyone else looks like they're succeeding in or finding happiness through.
I've decided there's a strong possibility that they created a secret society in Stanford, and we'll never know what the real intention is. All right.
One day. That's one of our goals. Create a secret society.
Let's talk about the Pragmatist Foundation, this nonprofit that you created, and why you created it and what it's doing.
So the nonprofit right now is just where all of the profits from the book go. We're not in this for any sort of financial benefit for ourselves. When we look at sort of the geopolitical state of the world right now, and when we look at where things are heading, it seems to us that truth has become a bit of a team sport. And people aren't interested in challenging their ideas about the world, or in looking for evidence that they might be wrong, or evidence that maybe they should change the way they're trying to achieve what they want to achieve. And we created this foundation to try to break that trend, to try to help educate people at an early age in how to change your own mind and how to choose who you're going to be.
And okay, so there's a lot of self-responsibility. There's a lot of you're responsible for yourself in your worldview, correct?
Oh, yes. No, I mean, one thing that we do really dislike about a lot of self-help and advice books that we see is that it's all about, you're okay, you're good enough, you should like who you are. And our argument is actually, no, you shouldn't like who you are. You should learn how to become someone that does deserve your respect. Don't respect yourself as you are with your flaws.
Nice. So it's about development. It's about, a lot of this is about forward movement and creation and becoming, yes?
Yeah, and creating and shifting your locus of control from an external locus of control where everyone, where your failures are someone else's fault or the fault of circumstances, to an internal locus of control where everything that happens is due to your final call on that thing.
Is that I noticed pragmatism is a foundational concept here. Is that because you think that the way that you had indicated you were going through life, where we're just looking for happiness and to feel better and to, fulfill some goals that in many cases weren't self-directed, right? We got from our parents, our family, our culture, our something, right? Do you feel like that's impractical in some way? Is this more of a practical guide, or is there something else to it?
Yeah. We find it ridiculously, hilariously impractical that people try to achieve things in life that don't mean anything to them. It's like, oh, let's be practical about the way we go about this. Now, why don't you please spread peanut butter on that wall? And you're like, okay, I'll do that. But you never ask why.
And it's about asking why to the things that we often don't question in our lives. And that's a big focus of the book. And it's something that when people don't like the book, is one of their core criticism. Is they say, these are questions you're not supposed to ask.
Interesting.
You're not supposed to ask, does equality really matter? And if so, why?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really an effective tool for maximizing happiness? And we're not saying that's wrong or right, but we're just trying to get people to question the core assumptions that as a society we're just said, oh, don't ask that question. Don't focus on that.
Yeah, which is funny because, we make fun of dystopian futuristic societies where there are certain things that you're not allowed to talk about. And yet at the same time, there are so many things that we're not allowed to talk about. And we don't even seem to recognize that that's the case.
I love that too, because I think from like coaching world is like when you actually get pretty clear or you dare to ask why, you get you actually create the definition, or you get to see like, oh, if you're chasing after happiness, like what does it even mean? What does happiness mean to you? And when you kind of get to understand that why, then you're like, oh, it's more specific and it becomes more of an achievable thing. And then you can actually get clear on, oh, I'm here at that place. What do you, when you're working with people to actually ask these whys, like, are you finding that most people aren't challenging themselves in that way?
Yeah, they want an answer, like what happens often when we just ask them the initial question, okay, find out what it is you want to maximize with your life. They'll go onto Wikipedia and look for a list of, meanings of life. They'll go through that. They'll choose the one that they like, and they're like, okay, well, I've decided that I'm going to be, like this philosophy, and I'm just going to do everything that they say is good.
Or worse than that, they'd say, we're like, what are you trying to maximize? Like, what do you think has value in the world, and how are you going to maximize it, right? Mm-hmm. And what they do is they look through sort of worldviews and pick whichever worldview means they have to change the least about their lifestyle.
Right, like the one that fits their current personality. Well, like, I'm the spunky, adventurous person, so...
And I have a family, and I'm working, towards a career, and so, okay, what thing would all of that be working towards? Yes. That's what must have value.
Yes.
But they didn't choose to do all those things because they were trying to reach this end goal. All of these things were foisted upon them by, serendipity and necessity, and then they created an end goal that made them satisfying to them.
I love that piece you touched on, like, travel, too. What role do you think that travel plays in like figuring out a good life plan and having people, you touch on in the book this flux period. Can you kind of explain and attach both of those in regard to what we're talking about?
Yeah, so one of the things that we discuss a lot in the book is once you know what you want to maximize with your life, how do you change yourself into a person that is capable of maximizing that, who reacts to the world in the right ways? And that means in many cases breaking habits that are extremely hard to break, you know, reinventing yourself. And to figure out how we actually make that change, because habit change is extremely difficult. We looked a lot at different behavioral economics cases in which governments and other organizations managed to effectively change behavior. And what we found was that most of the effective programs take advantage of what in the book we've decided to call flux periods, which are basically periods in which your identity is unhinged from the normal narrative
social
of your
context.
life. Yeah. So what we would call a flux period is like when you move to a new city, when you graduate from college, when you get a new job, when you have your first child. It's when you are doing something for the first time, or you're in a new place and you're not surrounded by the characters and the set and the costumes that tell you who you are and make it impossible to change.
And in these moments in your life, you can genuinely rewrite who you are. You can rewrite how you emotionally react to environmental stimuli. You know, somebody comes up and insults you, and you can choose the emotional impulse that you get from that situation, and you can choose how to create yourself, but there are only a few moments in your life where you can do that, and those are these flux periods, and you can artificially create them through travel.
Yeah, and so one thing that we're really excited about is, I mean, now that we have a travel company too, and we're able to get really good prices for people to fly around and really, you know, really inexpensive periods spent outside the country or in some other area, we're trying to figure out ways that we can help people kick bad habits, be it, you know, stopping smoking or literally changing their identity as they want to make their lives more effective and fulfilling, so that they can achieve their goals. And we just find travel to be such a helpful tool with that. It's really the only way that you can orchestrate it in an intentional way, because otherwise it's, you know, it has to be one of those big junctures. Someone in your life dies, you change jobs, you move to a new city, and it's really hard to control those sorts of things.
It's I know that the Pragmatist's Guide to Life is easily and readily available. You've made it so by having a completely affordable price. Kindle version on Amazon right now, 99 cents for this book. If people want the paperback, I think it's only about $7. So
it was the lowest Amazon would allow us to charge.
It's astounding. And you're taking what monies you do get and putting them into the Pragmatist Foundation. My understanding is the Pragmatist Foundation is privately funded. In other words, we can't donate it to it other than by purchasing the book. Is that true?
Maybe one day we'll be doing stuff where we would love to have other people, you know, contribute to it. But the thing that we would want most from people, if they sort of like our mission, is just to reach out to us and coordinate with us on how we can help and help steer our goals. Because, you know, what we need most right now is just assistance in creating the structure of the organization and moving it forward to the next steps. I mean, we're doing an awful lot right now, you know, working on our next book and running our, you know, international business empire. So
indeed.
It's a little difficult to put as much time as we would like towards the foundation.
And if people are interested, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Do you want them to do it through social media? Is there a way to reach out?
Just email me at malcolm@pragmatist.guide or simone@pragmatist.guide.
Very good, very clear. And you invite people to take on this book not just by themselves, like so many of us who are in or have dealt with the self-help industry, and we just sort of get the book and put it on our shelf, but you invite us to do it with a book buddy. So we can purchase it on Kindle, we can purchase it paperback, but you'll send a free digital copy of the book to a book buddy for us. It's extraordinary work, and I want to thank you for being with us. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. We got about, 27 seconds left. What would you like to make your parting thought or parting shot for us and 50,000 coaches today?
As you go throughout the day, keep an eye out for something, some idea, some comment that offends you. If something offends you, it means that it's a threatening idea to your reality, and it is potentially real, because if it wasn't really possible, it wouldn't scare you. Explore that and see if it's right and you can change better.
Beautiful. All right, The Pragmatist Guide to Life, available on Kindle for 99 cents, the lowest price they'd allow, or in paperback for $6.65. We thank both Malcolm and Simone for being with us, and we thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching.